Thank you for the gift.
That's you're most welcome. But I was just expressing the impact you have on me about thinking about seeing people,
Thank you.
you know.
Yeah.
So I see you, Bev.
Thank you, Matuba.
Now, the first segment, drum roll, the love
please.
story. So
Woohoo!
I want to talk about the love story.
What love story? Which love story? What are we loving? Who are we loving?
So on the 10th of September, 2022,
2022.
your life changed for the best.
My favorite year. My favorite year. Period. I was going to say since what? No, my favorite year. 2022 was a magical year for me. I said, Nicole, do you want to do this life thing with me? And she said, baby, yes, let's do this life thing together. We're like, when do you want to do it? She said, soon. I was like, I agree. Because why are we waiting? We just met. I think we'd met a few months before the proposal. You know when they say when you know, you know? I knew Shem. From day one, I knew. And yeah, on the 10th of September, family and friends got together. I had to I struggled, Shem, to curb. I know a lot of people, you know, and one of the things that I'm learning and that she's teaching me also is, yeah, you know a lot of people. And if we could afford it, there would have been 300 people at my wedding. Her thing was, you know, it's not that there are people who are not important, but you have to think about who. It's a difficult one.
But also,
It's such a difficult
I don't know
one.
about you. I'm getting into my 40s now.
Yeah.
But already, guys, I'm not explaining myself to people.
No, it's true, but
Yeah,
still,
and I didn't. When I saw it, I know.
I
I know. And when I saw and I knew it had to happen the way it happened.
I was like, yeah, and then we had to curb it, you know?
Yeah.
But it was wonderful. It was a beautiful afternoon. It happened exactly as we had intended, with very little drama. You know, the drama is the kind, you know, wedding dramas.
I don't know if that's a jibe for other weddings or
No,
like
but like go na le di drama tse monate and then go na le di drama tse botlhoko, you know. This was like in the middle of the vows, my mom saying, I need to say something. And there's me looking at our priest going, don't know. It's like, and then the microphone goes to, I'm like, no, don't allow my mom to talk. My mom is 70. My mom doesn't care what anybody thinks. And mom goes, there have been many. There have been many. I'm like, no, there haven't been many. Ma. And then when people burst out laughing, says about this one, she's the one. I think more than anything, it's the fact that to be loved unconditionally, to love unconditionally, and then to have both our families embrace us and love me, and vice versa. She loves my mom. You know, me and my mom are like this. My mom and my sister, like, you know, just like all of it. It's amazing. It was a magical day.
And I think that's one of the things that connects me and you, and we've never had any closer to be inside of, because our families, even though it happened in the most natural way,
organic,
for us to be who we were. We never had to give a wrong impression of who we were. And we knew the safety net was the love of our families.
I've never been in a closet. So people say, when I came out. Yes, when I came out is when I used words.
Yes.
That's the coming out is the words. And the words were always a bit of a problem, because the words have negative connotations and all kinds of other things. But who I've always been has never really changed. So we're very blessed like that.
But when I watched Simon and I, preparing for this meeting, I heard you complain about how, everybody thought you are this pretty girl who will make a great wife. And in those days, a wife could only be to a man.
Yes.
And how does it make you feel, Mara, to be a wife, but to the person that you love?
It is so revolutionary. Thank you for that question. Because I was asked, do you go by partner? Do you go by spouse? Like, no, I am happy to say my wife. And I'm happy when she says my wife, because it's the most revolutionary thing. There aren't many places on this continent, there aren't places in this continent where you can say my wife and be a woman saying that. And in other parts of the world, you know, I say my wife, and sometimes I say it to be provocative.
Yes.
Because I know that like there will be like whiplash. People will glitch and look and go, what? You know? It is the most incredible feeling that, yes, I've grown up to be a wife.
That's beautiful. And look, this is a podcast and we can have opinions. We express ourselves. And we're not gossiping or anything. We can. If we, but you know, I've seen... I've seen weddings. You know, I've seen same-sex weddings. And for me, as you use the word revolutionary, and then now it started, for me, being something else, you know, and creating a gaze into...
A spectacle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Into the lives of queer people,
Yeah.
because now a certain somebody represents all of the gays or all of the lesbians, or because, oh, did you see the wedding? What do you think? So people will ask you for an opinion because they saw another gay or lesbian wedding. And what are we doing?
No?
Or is it none of our business? Because we can end it there and move on to another question.
Yeah. Look, I could very easily have been one of those people who jumped into getting married as soon as we were allowed because, oh my God, now we can, you know? And we all get married for different reasons. I think some people, it is about the ceremony. Some people, it is about the spectacle. And you know, sometimes I'm like, if you're enjoying the spectacle, enjoy the spectacle. It comes with its criticisms. For me and Nicole, it was the first time in my life where I felt that I wanted to have the people I love and people who love me to be witnesses to my declaration of my absolute devotion to the woman who I choose and who chooses me to be their life partner, you know? And so the fact that we did it at Cornhill, which on its own has its own controversy because this is a former jail, former women's jail. There's a quote where one of the prisoners says, I want this place to be known as a jail, but I want it to be transformed to something that gives joy. And that is what actually inspired me. So when we said, can we do this? And they said, yes, absolutely. We said, yeah. So the day started off with all our guests with their glasses of bubbles and their drinks, doing a tour so that they know the history of the place. And then coming back into the women's jail and then seeing the transformation into joy. That for me was like, we're done, you know?
I'm very happy for you, actually.
Thank you.
I'm very happy for you.
It was a beautiful day. Oh my God.
very
We danced, we cried, we laughed, we danced some more, we laughed some more, we cried. Oh my God. Yeah, and it continues to be joyful. The memories are joyful.
Yay.
So yeah, we get married for different reasons.
We do. I suppose we do. Let's leave it at that. It's just
Yeah.
that the reason why I raised it is I get annoyed when somebody thinks that a certain person who also happens to be gay represents me.
Yeah. And now...
And you don't hear me asking heterosexual people if they believe in polygamy because there's a TV show of a certain
yes,
man who promotes it, who condones it, who enjoys it. Not all heterosexual people do that. You know?
Right?
So I really
Yeah.
get...
Actually, we are homogenous. We are one person. Yeah.
Hey,
Meanwhile...
hey. Anyway, let's wrap up the love story
Yes.
segment and we go, excuse me, to the next segment, which is the ID. And maybe this will also excite the heterosexual people watching. Because, well, the curious ones at least, who mock us as the the alphabet gang or the
Woohoo!
and,
The rainbow people.
because the LGBTQ. Because the other time
ABC,
I was asked, is
why-
it LGBTQIA plus?
AI plus one,
what's
two,
happening
three.
there?
Hey, what? I love us, Shem.
But are you hypersensitive about your pronouns, and what's your view on the language that has improved? Because at some point we didn't know what to call ourselves because
Yeah.
there wasn't enough
Yeah.
literature for us to read to say there's
Yeah.
LGBTQIA plus, there's
Yeah.
lesbian, there's gay, there's
Yeah.
transgender.
Yeah.
So we actually accepted the names that we were given and the diagnosis that we were given because of
Exactly.
who we were.
I mean,
or
it's
who we
like
are.
we're constantly told who we are or who we are supposed to be. And then we just take that and we move with it, you know? I don't know how many people know that there are 5 different genders, scientifically. When people say, oh, biologically there's only 2 genders, there isn't, you know? And the Hadidas are saying, I agree! But, you know, there's so much we don't know because it serves the status quo to keep people in the dark about things that will disturb the status quo. The status quo in its capitalism, in its racism, in its sexism, demands, in its homophobia, demands that we think the same and we look the same and we do things the same. That's why we go to school, so that we are taught to be the same. We go to churches so that we are, forced to be same. We're taught everything must be. It serves the status quo, And I'm a disruptor of the status quo. I don't care what pronouns people call me, because there's always been this thing that you are insulting someone for me. And we are only speaking about myself here. If you tell me that your pronoun is he, I will honor your pronoun. You are he. If you tell me your pronoun is she or they, I will honor your pronoun. For me, personally, gender is such a non-thing. It's a construct. I don't care. I've never been any of it. And so if you call me he, you call me she, people think they insult me, oh, he. And then they think I'm going to go, I don't care, bruh. I'm Bev. I will always be just Bev. But I love us. I love the fact that every one of us is finding and carving our own space, whether it's in the rainbow or outside of the rainbow. When I joined Glow as a co-founder, we were only gay. And it was just assumed that when you say gay, you mean everybody. And then you start slowly finding out that really gay men think only gay men, and everything is around gay men. And how it manifested itself for me, was quite sad, because we were doing all these HIV workshops, we were doing all these outreach programs, and it was all centered around gay men and masculinity. And I just didn't fit. I'm doing these workshops, I'm going around, I'm talking to people, and I was not representing me or any of my people, And so I started questioning that and saying, Kante, where's the lesbian here, And then, of course, it was very quickly realized that we actually are a gay and lesbian organization. Yes, we're a gay and lesbian organization, so we have to think about the lesbians. And then the bisexual people were like, okay, but, we are part of the spectrum too. Yes, we are. Okay, LGB. Okay, where's everybody else? To a point where I know you cannot ask me a question about trans identity. I will always tell you, listen. And it wasn't always that way. We always thought we could speak on behalf of each other, but we know better now. I cannot speak on trans issues. I know nothing about trans issues. I have trans friends, yes, but I cannot speak on their behalf. They can speak on their own behalf. So I'm happy that we have found ways to identify ourselves, because language allows you to find a community. It allows you to find the people that make you feel home, that make you feel safe. Without the language, you are all over the place. I did not know the word gay. When I didn't know the word gay, I thought I was the only one. I was odd, I was weird, I was alone and lonely. I found the word. The word gave me a community of other gays. When I found the word lesbian, it gave me a community of lesbians. When I found the gender non-conforming, it gave me an even bigger community. Non-binary, now I have a bigger... It gives you community. It gives you people you identify with. And that's always an amazing thing.
And I think it's an act of providence that I'm here, because I'm working on a documentary. I'm a Deutsche Welle Academy fellow.
Wow.
So thank you. And the homework we were given is to do a documentary about stuff we are passionate about. And a friend that got me into the activism space, advocacy for HIV, LGBTQIA people, Jay Maclo, you might know Jay.
I know Jay.
Very good friend of mine. So early 2000, that's when he said, no, come. I didn't know there was Loop. I didn't know there was... Like, he introduced me to things that, just enhanced who I was already.
Yeah.
And 20 odd years down the line, I go to him. He's still in the NGO space, doing amazing work. And I said, Jay, I want to talk about trans people. And he says, no, you can't. He says, no, you can't. I can find you somebody who you can tell the story through.
Yeah.
So you don't look like the toxic gay men that we are trying to make extinct. Because gay men are like that. They take over everything. They forget that other people exist. And I'm grateful that you raised that. And I'm grateful I have friends like Jay who...
Look, we come from there. Where,
evolved,
you speak on behalf of people. Like, no, people have their own autonomy. People have their own voices. Let them speak. I think also that's the thing about being an ally.
Yes.
What makes a good ally is if you've opened a door, you leave the door open.
Well, now being ally now for people is calling me chomi because I'm gay. Oh, no, because I thought you're gay. Anyway, let's not talk about that. That's way too
no, but it infuriates me though, because you cannot call yourself an ally and then you take over queer spaces. Like it infuriates me. I don't mind saying it out loud. If you're an ally and you get invited to a queer event and you're not queer and you are paid to do a job inside a queer space, think about the fact that there are queers in the space who never get work in the straight world.
You
think about that.
You fell right into my next discussion point, which is part of the documentary we're doing is that, and this is Jay's idea about how advocacy groups should evolve beyond giving condoms, PrEP, and ARVs, and creating economic opportunities, especially for trans people, because trans people, they go through a lot. Yeah. I don't know the half of it, but because the ID says male, they look female.
Yeah.
But we don't do anything as advocacy groups to create economic well, I don't see a lot happening. No. I don't know if you know of.
No, I mean the way NGOs and how we in the NGO space, how I grew up in the NGO space, you have donor funds that half the time dictate how the funds are to be used. And so you have needs that get tailored to donor funds instead of donor funds being tailored to needs. That's for me first. Second, the dependency on donor funding also creates a situation where needs are not really being met. There are very few donor organizations, in my opinion, and it is a humble opinion, being somebody who I have a nonprofit, and even just raising the funds is difficult because the donor funds are very clear about what they are to be used for. And so where is the empowerment? Where is the autonomy? Where's all those things inside the donor funds themselves? And if we had to be self-sustaining as non-profits, how do we do that without being dictated to by donor funds? It's a catch-22. People. I'm not answering that very well.
No.
But it's something to think about
we are getting
for me, because it's not just the trans folk. And I'm not playing down.
No.
my most mask-presenting butch friends struggle in workspaces because homophobia, transphobia is big.
Rife. It's very rife.
Everywhere in all spaces you go to, you're constantly aware of how you're being treated, of how you're being addressed. It's just there, And so for me, it's about, yes, creating situations and creating work and creating empowerment opportunities for ourselves. But it's also breaking these ceilings and going into and giving enough support for people to be able to be in their workspaces and not have to be fighting every day.
The other day, I went to Exclusive Books. And there's one particular one I like that had books that I like reading.
Okay.
In a section that I preferred, which was the LGBTQ plus IA.
Yeah.
Dun dun. And then I'm like, oh, so they changed. I walk around, man. I'm like, hey, it's 10 minutes now. Let me go ask. But where is that? Because then I got a Christmas voucher.
Okay.
Books are very expensive.
Yeah,
also.
they are.
So I got a Christmas voucher. I'm like, I'm going to spend it on anything queer just to put in my library. Oh, that guy says, casual and moves on to, I'm like, no, we don't have that section anymore. And carries on. And that's just, I dissolved. Like,
yeah.
Because I was like,
how do you not, huh? Do you have black, do you have women, do you have disabled, do you have cook, do you have, DIY? If you have all those sections.
Yeah, I mean, should we make peace with... this is one of the reasons why I started this podcast. I thought to myself, well, that podcast has to happen because we are becoming extinct in...
We are being erased.
In mainstream spaces.
And
and I know some people can argue that you went to the wrong bookshop, but I'm like, why did you even start? Why didn't you get queer people to gather queer content for you? Because there is lots of books. And I don't know if it's a business decision. I'm not going to interview Exclusive Books. I'm not going to give them a right of reply. I'm not interested, but I thought it's a weird thing that happens, that you can have something like that I went to. Sometimes even when I'm not buying books, when I can't afford to buy books, I'll just sit there, pull one, sit down and read a bit about it.
Also, when I was looking for Welcome's book, I went through the same. I actually walked around and eventually had to ask. And eventually the guy said, oh yeah, we have it, but I think they're at the back. Like, why are they at the back? The book just came out. It just came out. Why is it not prominent? Why
I don't know
is
if
it
I'll get
not...
into trouble for mentioning their name, but
No, but where's the lie?
You see.
I think if you can prove that we're lying, I know that I actually had to walk around and eventually I asked, and the guy went to the back to go find me the book I was looking for. Which means if I didn't know his name, Welcome, and if I didn't know the name of the book. So yes, we are slowly once again being pushed to the margins. Once again. I am not surprised.
But what are we doing about it? Because I don't want us to sound like people who whine and complain.
And not do anything.
And not do anything about it. Because we want to preserve ourselves and preserve our history and preserve and create something to leave behind for your kids, my kids, their kids, and so forth.
Listen, Matuba, I think I will tell you where my issue lies and why I'm not getting involved in a lot of these conversations anymore.
Okay.
I feel like we are going round and round and round, doing the same things, expecting different results. We are wanting inclusivity. I am done with wanting inclusivity. I'm wanting systemic change. My aim is to change the entire shit. If we are living in a cishet, I can't even say non-racist because we are still living in a racist, in a very misogynistic space where everything is governed by capitalism, by patriarchy. Until that changes, we'll continue to be playing in the same circles Because if all you want is inclusivity, you will get to spaces where somebody will say, okay, can I look compassion, can I understand, let's be inclusive. When that person gets fired or they leave that job, somebody else walks in who says, I don't give a fuck about this. So we're back to square one. That's what we're doing. Until we strategize a little further on changing the entire system.
Yeah.
We will continue to, like everything we've spoken about here, whether it is about, giving people opportunities, whether they are queer, trans, however they identify, whether we're talking about violence within our communities, whatever we're talking about, all of it for me is over here. Because we are not strategizing about changing the system. Can we change the system? I don't know.
We failed, I think.
I don't think that we were very clear that that's what we were doing. I'll be honest with you. I think right from bat, we were hoping, and I use the word hoping very deliberately here. From the end of apartheid, that whole handshake deal was us hoping for being included. Hoping to be included in spaces, whether it is us living in suburbia being included in spaces, whether it's us being able to, be a CEO as a woman, as a female, as a, I use the word female. I'm mortified at self. As somebody assigned female at birth, at least I can use it that way. But damn.
I'm not editing this out.
You assigned female at birth. AFAB, right? As somebody who's assigned female, who's mask presenting, being given the opportunity to be CEO is once again being included. It's all on somebody's whim, isn't it?
We're still doing the first black.
It's all on whim, isn't it? We haven't changed nothing. Right from bat, it's always been an issue for me that we're just asking for inclusivity. We want tolerance. There's no word I hate like tolerance. You tolerate chapisi when you've stepped on it until you can remove it. You tolerate that little piece of thing in your shoe until you can remove it. That's tolerance. Fuck tolerance. Fuck anybody with tolerance. I don't want no tolerance. I don't give a fuck if you tolerate me or not. I am here, I exist, and I'm going to take up the space. So I really think that we're not going to solve anything until we get to a point where we strategize on changing the system. Change the system. This entire system needs to go. All of it. We're all suffering from one system. It's capitalist, it's patriarchal, it is a lie, it is bullshit. All of it.
And it translates to violence to poor people.
All of us. Exactly.
It translates to violence.
Poverty is being criminalized as though you choose it. So no.
And to affirm what not that you need affirming, but in Simon and I, you interview a lesbian woman who's talking about how men wanted to show her how to be a woman because they wanted to rape her. Since that, how many years now?
And it's still the same rhetoric over and over and over and
so
over.
That's a system.
I'm bored. It's boring. And even when cishet men say that, I'm bored, I look at them and go, aren't you bored? Aren't you bored of saying the exact same thing over and over? Did you think before you even open your mouth?
It's passed down to them.
It's boring.
I know.
Also the fact that you're continuously perpetuating your own lies. You're continuously perpetuating a lie. There's no critical thinking. And that's because a lot of the time I'm finding, in the same way that white folk only talk to white folk and listen to white folk, men only talk to men and only listen to men. And so you're all regurgitating these lies amongst yourselves. And you're not listening. It is such a fascinating thing for me.
Well, let's go to a bit of a lighter note and talk about the artist in you. And, you got your first gig at 10 and you got a role as a boy.
I know.
And I'm going to ask you again to freestyle and share your journey as an artist and how that part of you coexisted with being an activist.
Without knowing how revolutionary it was. And when I realized that playing a boy role inside apartheid at the age of 9, actually. I wasn't even 10 yet. If I had known how revolutionary it was, I probably would have walked around with a bigger ego, even as a kid. Because honestly, I am lucky in one very big way, Matuba. I have always been affirmed. Go high, I was always allowed to be me. The only time I was forced to not be me was when I had to be presented to the world. So when important family members are coming over, my sister and I would be forced into skirts and dresses. We must look nice. When we have to go to church, major functions, that's the only time now we're being presented to the world. But conclude, I was always affirmed. And the difference, I think, between us, me and somebody else who wasn't affirmed is that my self-esteem has always been kind of solid as a result of being affirmed. I think one of the reasons I'm outraged at homophobia is because I never really experienced it in my own home, in my own proximity, because I was always affirmed. I was told I am awesome, exactly the way I am. And then, of course, books. We always got books. We always got toys, but they were mostly educational, So I learned to play guitar. I would teach myself. And then when my grandfather saw, you're teaching yourself, he'd bring a book. Like there were no karate dojos that I could go to. So he would take me to go watch Bruce Lee and then get me a book. So I'm self-taught in a lot of what I do because they would always affirm me. They would always bring books. They would always say, you can learn.
And that upbringing you had took you places. And recently to the United States, where Claremont Graduate University demanded that now we call you Dr. Bev.
I know, right?
Eh?
How amazing.
Hey, Munna.
How amazing.
Yeah, a whole doctor.
How amazing. It was actually, what coincides with that is February of 2019 was my first msebetsi omkhulu wa uleboha. My spiritual mom, who has been there since I was a baby. I mean, she is my grandma's best friend.
Okay.
And so that she's always been around, And every time I had any kind of spiritual crisis or any kind of questions, she would be the one I go to a point where she started becoming somebody I went to regularly, and I started learning a lot and then started understanding who I am on a spiritual level as a healer. And so when she then kind of, slowly started talking about, we need to start preparing you for msebetsi, we need to start, so the preps, there's quite a few, uhlaba this, and then you graduate to, So I had my big, she said, uskayibitsa ntwaso, because people have ntwaso, they expect to, rigita busangoma.
Yeah.
So we called it a spiritual homecoming.
Yes.
We called it. And it happened in the same year. God, it was February, and in May, I was in the States getting capped. And so she would say, your doctorate on a spiritual level happened in the same year as your doctorate on being recognized kind of academically as an activist. And like, so you're authentically, don't doubt it when people say doctor. God, I would always go, oh no, I didn't earn it. Oh, don't.
You earned it.
Oh, I didn't. It's always been a thing,
Will tell you
and you have people even now. There's somebody on social media, and I'm gonna say it. I don't have to say her name, but shame to have somebody be so hateful. She would post things like that one that insists on calling herself doctor, and I go, actually I don't. But everyone around me who calls me doctor, I acknowledge and I welcome and I accept. Thank you very much. But it took a long time for me to accept her. Actually, no.
Listen.
From a spiritual space alone.
Did you not hear what Toni Morrison said? She said they'll tell you have no values.
Yeah.
And you'll go running looking for values. They'll tell you have no hair when it's on your head.
Yeah.
And you want to make hair that they want.
Yeah. No, that's fine. like Yadula, that thing there. But it took a while for
I hear
me
you.
to accept it and to be comfortable and to wear my own shoes and
Yes.
fit in them, you know.
You know, and they are yours also.
And to say, yeah,
And-
actually.
And still on the graduation, you know, I've had this conversation over wine with friends a lot. Hey guys, remember overtaking USA? Why wasn't it UCT? Why wasn't it Stellenbosch? Why was it not University of Venda? Why was it not Pretoria Technikon that says, you know, the first gay pride in South Africa, you were there with other people, of course, but you were in the front lines of the activism of something that was not even unpopular. It didn't exist. People didn't want it to exist here in South Africa. And it says a lot about us.
Yeah.
Because I won't even touch the national orders that you have not been nominated for. But I don't know if, are you scared, and you have not expressed anything to say, well, at least you got further awards. Did you know? No, let's not do that.
I appreciated it. No, I appreciated the feather. I hate the politics behind how and why I got it.
Okay. No, that's fine. Let's
'Cause
not,
that's politics.
Let's not touch that.
But I appreciated
yes,
that
yes,
award.
yes. But I mean, it makes sense if the Feather Awards Committee decided that, you know, I think for me it was a given that you would get an award from Feather Awards. But you have not complained about why you got it outside South Africa and not here. And maybe it's because you are scared people will think you are entitled. Well, you are too late. People already think you are entitled.
Bona. I value my work. But there is somebody who said, and it made such perfect sense. Quincy Jones, when people kept saying, you're so humble. Like, why are you not seeing who you are? And his response was, I feel like I have so much that I need to do, that I still need to do. My calling is so much bigger that I cannot be accepting accolades that make me into what I don't think I am yet. I have so much, my ambitions are so huge. My ambitions are huge. I have not even touched how I want to change this world. And yes, I've shifted things. I can acknowledge that. I have shifted things. I have shifted for myself personally, for my home, for the people around me, for my community, for the queers around the continent. I know I've shifted things, you know. But it's this much in comparison to what I still want to do. And so no, I'm not going to complain. Not yet.
I'm being a disruptor, don't worry.
Not yet.
I don't expect you to.
Not yet.
And
it's okay. It's okay. I also have had to accept that I'm one of those people that will probably die before I get seen, fully seen. I don't like that very much, to be honest.
Must
It's
be
nice
depressing.
it's nice to be seen. So now when somebody sees me, I receive. Thank you.
you're most welcome.
I receive.
And let's leave it on that note, because you and I can
I
speak
receive.
forever and ever and ever and ever.
Yes.
And I hope that was loud and clear enough for all of you watching and
Yay.
listening. And thank you, Dr. Bev.